Mom still can't hear." Mary sighed heavily. Seeing her daughter, bound to the bed with no hope of recovery, was painful. Hearing the hope in the child's voice fade day by day was even more painful. "Oh, Julia, Julia. Who have you left us for? I'm already 65, and I won't be able to raise Lauren on my own. I won't make it, Julia." But her daughter remained indifferent to her pleas. Mary spent countless nights by her bedside, shed countless tears, immeasurable, but the woman was deaf to her prayers. Was it God punishing the sinful old woman? But what had the child done wrong? Lauren's sorrow was stronger. She went through all the stages of grief, exaggerated by childish emotions. The girl refused to believe what had happened for a long time. Little children always believe that their parents are invulnerable, that their parents will always be there. But life, cruel life, teaches that it's not always the case. Lauren didn't come to the hospital. Coming meant believing that a catastrophe had occurred, and her mom, here she was, right there. Not opening her eyes for several months now. "Grandma," Lauren asked, "how can we wake up Mom?" But Mary remained silent. It's hard to tell a child that any efforts here are futile. Lauren brought an alarm clock to the hospital, set it every half hour, until it began to annoy the doctor. "You're not alone here," the male doctor said rudely. "Your girl is bothering other patients. Get her out of here." "Well, how can I tell her that, doctor? She still hopes." "I'm not particularly concerned about her hope. Remove either the alarm clock or I'll arrange for the girl not to be admitted to the ward." Mary nodded, turned her back to the doctor, and quietly, very quietly, cried, as only old people can cry, quietly, suppressed, so as not to burden anyone with their tears. Over the years, they had come to understand that no one needed their tears, and they wouldn't get support from anyone. Everyone had their own troubles: a small salary, a broken TV, a child getting a failing grade. And Mary, well, her daughter was in a coma. Neighbors expressed sympathy, relatives cried, but none of them could fully feel the pain and the weight of responsibility that now rested on the poor old woman's shoulders. Unexpectedly, like a devil out of a snuff-box, Lauren's father appeared. He had divorced Julia when the girl was only 2 years old. Their characters didn't match. He simply started drinking all the money he earned, and Julia didn't want to tolerate it. "Smart girl, my daughter," Mary said at the time. "I'm happy that you had the strength for this. I, in my time, didn't." But she raised Julia properly. She taught her daughter to value herself, to choose herself, to become her own inner support. And indeed, Julia grew up to be a strong, determined woman. With a child in her arms, she started her own small business. No matter how much Mary dissuaded her, Julia stood her ground. "I want the best for myself and my daughter," Julia said back then. "What's the use if I spend my whole life bending over for others to earn a pittance? This way, I will invest in myself, and I'll make it." "I worry about you, Julia," her mother replied. "You're so small and fragile. Where do you think you're going with such a big business? It's dangerous out there. Competitors and all. If you want to support me, just say so. But if there's no support in your words for me, it's better not to say anything." That's how her daughter was: strong, bold, and assertive. That's why she succeeded. Julia started her own logistics company from scratch, and Mary didn't understand anything about it. So, she could only watch with her mouth wide open as her daughter gradually climbed to the top of success. Sometimes, she stumbled, slid back, but she persistently moved upward. Everyone who knew Julia said she was a wonderful person, the best mother for Lauren. She worked like a horse, but was always cheerful and smiling. and she always found time for her daughter. Not all parents could devote so much, but Julia could. That's why the little girl missed her mother so much. Every day, Mary saw how little Lauren sat on a tiny chair, just the right size for a 6-year-old, and quietly moped in a corner. Only occasionally did she look out the window, like the kids at daycare. Is Mom coming? Grandma, when will Mom come? The little girl asked from time to time, looking at her with such huge eyes that Mary had neither the strength nor the nerves to respond. Eric, the father of the child, called more and more often. He asked about their well-being, their health, about everything in general. At first, Mary kept her distance, but then she thawed somehow. After all, her daughter had been in a coma for nearly a year, quite a long time to rethink one's own life. Eric was always sober on the phone. Maybe the past 4 years had changed him significantly, and that's why Mary agreed to take a step forward. One small step for Lauren's sake. "Mary," came the voice from the receiver. "How are you? How is Julia? No change?" "Hello, Eric. It's still the same. To be honest, I no longer believe it will get better. How about you?" With time, Mary became an aunt, and Eric became a father again in Lauren's life, thanks to her mother's efforts. Don't get me wrong, Lauren was very happy about it, but she missed her mom so much. Eric had a new wife by then. According to his own admission, it was easier with Melanie than with Julia. Melanie was not as driven by nature, so she tried not to pressure her husband and supported him in everything. As it turned out, this approach was much closer to Eric. Julia was very demanding, Aunt Mary, Eric repeatedly confessed. She was like that herself. It was hard with her. You can't argue with someone like that. That's true, her mother agreed. Well, she outpaced herself, unfortunately. I don't even know how to live now. Don't worry, Aunt Mary. I will definitely help you. I always wanted to send child support, but Julia refused. She was proud, she had her pride. I'm sorry. Aunt Mary forgave, of course. In a year, she had already gotten used to such remarks and hardly believed that her daughter would finally wake up. The predictions were not comforting. Yes, she was managing the medication, and her body was not on the brink of life and death. But that's all they could say. Can't you tell when she will come out of the coma? Mary asked hopefully. We should rephrase the question, not when she will come out, but if she will come out. Mary, I'm very sorry for you, but let's be realistic, the doctor commented dryly. Medical cynicism, it was necessary, Mary understood that. She didn't hold any grudges, but never asked that question again. Another nearly a year passed. Eric did indeed actively participate in the lives of his daughter and his former mother-in-law. The latter, he was not obliged to do, but he showed himself to be a good, supportive person. Mary even accepted his new wife, Melanie, which was nonsense in itself. Relatives supporting the new spouse? Where had that been seen? But Melanie also turned out to be a kind, compassionate woman. From time to time, Eric and Melanie visited, helped around the house, and with Lauren. Mary was sincerely grateful to them. The little girl went to school, all dressed up and happy. But if everyone was laughing during the morning lineup, Lauren cried. It turned out that seeing so many children with their mothers at once became an unbearable blow for her. The girl cried for several hours, and no matter how hard her grandmother tried to comfort her, it was all in vain. Why? Lauren cried out. Why is it my mom? Why not Linda's mom? Linda is silly, silly, silly. And her mom is silly too. Not my mom. Here, she would usually scold her, Lauren, you can't talk like that. You can't wish that on anyone. But, dear Lord, she's just a child. A miserable child who just wanted to go to school on September 1st with her mom. Love cannot be blamed. Mary hoped that with the start of school, Lauren would spend less time at her mother's bedside. After all, there would be new experiences, lots of homework, extended school days, and so on. But the little rascal decided she was already grown up enough to run away from the after-school program. Of course, the first time, her grandmother was scared. A tearful teacher called her, saying that Lauren had run away somewhere. The poor teacher was almost in hysterics, but Mary almost immediately understood what had happened. "Sarah, don't panic," the woman calmly replied. "I think I know where she went. Please stay in touch. If I find her there, I'll call, and if not." What to do in such a case? Mary felt her knees trembling. She wasn't ready to lose her granddaughter as well. What if she had been kidnapped, and Mary was just wasting time? She needed to call the police, raise the whole town. She needed. And if not, the old lady said out loud, "I'll call her father, and we'll figure this out together." The teachers thanked her and assured that she would wait for the call. Meanwhile, she would continue searching. But it all turned out to be simpler. As Mary had suspected, the girl had indeed ended up in the hospital. Over the 2+ years, everyone here knew Lauren, and the kind nurses unofficially allowed her even during quiet hours. Everyone felt sorry for the little girl. Lauren sat on a small stool, holding her mom's hand when Mary entered the room. The pensioner moved quietly and inconspicuously, so the girl didn't even startle and continued talking with great enthusiasm. "And in my class, there's a girl named Abby. She has really beautiful yellow hair. I sit next to her at the same desk, and I really want to be friends with her. My friends from kindergarten abandoned me, just like you warned me. Remember when you told me they were fair-weather friends? Well, that's what happened. Mom, please wake up. I'll always listen to you now, always." Mary's heart ached. What kind of stone must one be not to shed tears at a moment like this? Lauren tenderly stroked her mother's hand and kept talking, and when she finished, Mary coughed gently. The granddaughter turned to her. "Hello, Grandma," the girl greeted with a dull tone. "I came here by myself. I didn't have lunch. I decided it's better to visit Mom and spend some time with her." "And where did you get the money?" "You gave me money for lunch, but I didn't have lunch. I thought it would be better to come see Mom and spend some time with her." "And how did you find your way here?" The girl snorted in annoyance. I'm not a little kid. We've been here so many times that I remember this road better than our way home." Mary sadly nodded. "The harsh reality of their lives is that you know the way to the hospital better than the way home. Why is this not a bad dream? You shouldn't just run off like this. Your teacher is worried. Imagine how she feels right now." "Why is she worried?" Lauren shrugged in confusion. "I told her I would leave early, but she didn't pay any attention to me. Why am I to blame if they don't listen to me? Or if all my classmates are so little and stupid that their parents always pick them up? I can do it myself." Her mother's daughter, Mary thought. Lauren was a small copy of her mother, not in appearance, but in character. The same stubbornness, the same breed. "Lauren, you're only 7 years old. That means you can't just go anywhere, anytime," her grandmother patiently explained. "Something could happen to you. You could be kidnapped. I can walk to school by myself, so why not to the hospital?" the girl protested. Arguing with her was futile. Lauren flared up like a match. When Julia ended up in the hospital, she had only 2 constant states, melancholy and irritation. It was terribly wearing on Mary, who was already weakened by her health. Lauren, her grandmother, replied patiently, "You're still a child. You can't do whatever comes to your mind. We're all very worried about you." "And Dad?" Lauren blushed instantly. That's how blood rushes to the face in a sudden burst of anger. Lauren felt that her grandmother wanted to get rid of her, to hand her over to her father and his new family so that she wouldn't have to care for Lauren anymore. Her dad seemed to be okay, at least it appeared that way, but Lauren didn't want to hear about it. She wanted her mom, and only her mom. "Your dad has given up on me," the girl hissed. "I have a mom. There she is, but I don't want another one." Before Mary could respond, Lauren had already run out of the room, crying. The elderly woman sighed. Unlike her daughter, she understood that this couldn't go on like this. Julia had been in a coma for too long. Of course, Mary would never allow life support to be disconnected. But Julia was her cross, and her cross alone. Not Lauren's. She needed her parents. Mary had discussed this with Eric many times. Initially, he was hesitant to entertain the idea. He couldn't imagine Lauren as part of his life and openly admitted it. "Mary," Eric repeated time and again. "You're a smart woman, you must understand that it's impossible. Melanie and we've just finished renovating, and we wanted to enjoy some time together. Imagine what it would be like for her to suddenly take in someone else's child. I understand you, Eric, but please understand me as a human being." It sounded like manipulation, but Mary couldn't help how she felt. In other words, there was no way to express it differently. "I'm already old, and I won't be able to take care of Lauren forever. I'll help you as much as I can, and maybe you'll get used to each other. But a child isn't like a hamster," Eric protested. "We can't just pass her back and forth like a kitten." "Is that what you're suggesting?" "She's only 7, Mary. This would be a very stressful experience for her." Lauren had no way of knowing about these discussions. She was still upset with her father, who seemed to have given up on her. In her 7-year-old heart, this felt like abandonment, and her grandmother's rejection cut even deeper. She wanted her mother more than anything, and her stubbornness mirrored her mother's determination. Lauren didn't understand the complexities of the adult world. She only knew that she missed her mom, and nothing else seemed to matter. And so, they talked and talked but reached no agreement. Mary didn't blame Eric for his decision. If she were in his shoes, she might not have agreed to her own proposal either. Eric's memories of his marriage to Julia were all but pleasant, and Lauren was a constant reminder of that past life. Furthermore, he had found happiness in his current relationship with Melanie. It would be cruel to rob them of that chance to be together. However, Lauren. Not that she was unwanted by her own grandmother, but such an event could not go without consequences. Mary's health had deteriorated significantly over the past 2 years, and she had spent a considerable amount of time in the hospital. During these times, Lauren had to stay with neighbors or some of Mary's friends. This won't do. Mary shared her concerns with Eric, but she didn't receive the understanding she had hoped for. Eric hesitated, muttered something vague, and then added, "You know, Aunt Mary, an orphanage isn't the worst option." Mary was horrified. Was her former son-in-law seriously suggesting sending her own daughter to an orphanage? Could she have misheard? "I truly hope," the elderly woman commented coldly, "that I won't hear any more words like this from you. I didn't mean to offend you, but—" "Goodbye, Eric." Perhaps she had rushed things. Perhaps she shouldn't have trusted this man so much. After all, he abandoned her daughter and didn't pay child support, regardless of what he was saying now. Julia was in a coma, unable to refute his claims. To suggest something like placing Lauren in an orphanage? Absolutely not. Mary would do everything in her power, even if it meant tightening her belt, to ensure her granddaughter lived in comfort. And if God decreed that she would leave this world earlier than expected, then, perhaps, there would be good, honest people to take care of her granddaughter. This thought was not comforting. Lauren, on the other hand, often didn't understand. She frequently saw her grandmother as an enemy, holding her responsible for what had happened. Children often needed someone to blame to make sense of their emotions, to know who to be angry at, who not to love. Blaming the situation itself was more challenging. It was too abstract for a child's mind to grasp. Mary was prepared for that too. Her gentle, adaptable nature accepted hardships as a part of life. If it had happened, they had the strength to endure it. You can come to your mom's whenever you want, but let me know in advance. Don't make everyone nervous and search for you, Mary said cautiously but firmly. Lauren nodded, and the girl was ready to agree to that. Plus, Lauren presented an ultimatum. Instead of this silly extended day program, I'll go to Mom's. At least there's someone to talk to, as awkward as it may sound, Lauren sincerely thought. And I can do my homework here too. Mary didn't want to escalate the situation, so she made concessions. If there was no other way, she would allow her granddaughter to come here every day. That same evening, there was a phone call in Mary's apartment. The old lady answered, and the voice on the other end was Melanie's soft and gentle voice. Aunt Mary, hello, the voice on the phone said. It's Melanie, Eric's wife. Do you remember me? A silly question, more out of politeness. Of course, she remembered. Melanie had done a lot for her and Lauren's well-being. Of course, Melanie. How are you? Have you recovered? For the past 1.5 months, Melanie had been suffering from a prolonged flu, and Mary envied her so much. Why couldn't Julia's illness just be a prolonged infection? Don't worry, I'm up and about, judging by her tone, Melanie smiled. Here's why I'm calling. Aunt Mary, Eric told me that you would like to find a place for Lauren somewhere. Mary's heart sank. No, not this. Now Melanie would start persuading her about that utterly ugly option with the children's home. It was already very low on Eric's part. Out loud, the pensioner replied, Please, Melanie, don't try to convince me that the children's home is a good solution. Eric and I have already argued about this, and I don't want to fall out with you too. Nonsense. Melanie scoffed. I have the same opinion as you. Lauren doesn't belong in a children's home. It's just another one of Eric's crazes. He's already heard it from me. Knowing Melanie's quiet nature, Mary couldn't imagine how that looked. But she chose to believe her. In any case, Melanie's words relieved her a little. I'm glad you understand me, Melanie, the old lady sincerely replied. No grandmother would send her granddaughter to an orphanage. It's monstrous. So why did you call, Melanie? I wanted to suggest that Lauren stays with us for a while to make it easier for you. But Eric didn't want that. Eric finds it very difficult to accept any changes, Melanie confided. It's very hard for him to adapt to something new, but both of us understand that it's very difficult for you to keep an eye on Lauren. It's hard, Mary admitted. I already raised her mother, and with all my ailments, I'm not ready to take on such responsibility. I would really like you to take her. Life is full of unexpected twists. As fate would have it, Lauren overheard this conversation. The girl had just come to the kitchen for a snack, and her grandmother was talking to Melanie at that moment. Not ready to take on the responsibility, take her. Lauren felt a sharp sting of betrayal. After the tragedy with her mother, Her grandmother had promised to always be there for her, to never leave or abandon her. And now, here it is, take her, please. For the rest of the day, Lauren didn't speak to her grandmother. She simply ignored everything her grandmother said. Are we having dinner? Whatever. Clean up your toys. You clean them up yourself. Lauren, why aren't you talking? Why do you think? But Mary, despite raising her daughter, couldn't boast of her experience in communicating with children. She decided for herself that Lauren was in a bad mood again. She'll calm down and start communicating normally. In the morning, the girl got up on her own and went to school. When her grandmother asked, "Why did you get up so early?" she didn't reply. She didn't want to be at home. She counted the hours until the next morning. She couldn't even sleep, and how could she, when children's thoughts overwhelmed her? Maybe Melanie and Eric weren't so bad after all? They treated her kindly, gave her presents, took her to the park. It seemed like they really wanted to feel like a complete family with Lauren. But Lauren didn't want that. She had a mother, and she didn't need another one, and how could she tell that to Melanie? If I say it directly, the girl mused aloud, maybe they'll get angry and won't want to take me. She needed to talk to someone urgently, and her choice fell on Abby, a classmate with whom she had somewhat friendly relations. Abby was the only one who knew about Lauren's family situation. She couldn't fully understand her friend, of course. Abby lived in a complete family. Her mother was healthy, they had a father nearby, and even a little sister named Carol. But Abby was a good listener and could provide some advice that Lauren, with her impulsive nature, might miss. During the break, Lauren told Abby everything. Abby listened very attentively and even asked to be led into the classroom where they were usually not allowed. But Abby didn't hesitate and asked their teacher to allow them in. "We need to have a serious talk," Abby said, and Sarah agreed. In the silence, it seemed difficult to formulate their thoughts. The background noise was distracting and soothing. And then Lauren just burst into tears. Abby was tense. Her friend wasn't usually the crying type. "Tell me," Abby said seriously, looking into Lauren's eyes with her clear blue gaze. "Grandma decided to send me to my dad and his new wife. How did you come to that conclusion? Did she tell you that herself?" "I overheard the conversation." "What conversation?" Lauren recounted the content almost exactly. Maybe she missed some details, but the essence was accurate. "Yes, that's exactly what Mary had said on the phone." "Well, you've got a situation on your hands," Abby said honestly. "But do you want to go to your dad yourself?" Lauren shook her head. "Why not?" "He lives on the other side of the city, and I won't be able to see my mom as often as now. They won't allow it, and they'll make me change schools. And, in general, it's goodbye to the life I'm used to." The last phrase sounded far from childish, which is why Abby understood how serious the situation was. They needed to think it through. "Let's tell Sarah, and she'll talk to your grandmother." "And what?" Lauren said sadly. "She'll forbid her to give me away?" "Well, Grandma's not a child, she won't listen." "What if you're honest and say you don't want to go? Maybe they won't take you then." "Have you tried that?" "I haven't tried." The girl snorted. "But it won't work, they've already agreed on everything. And Grandma doesn't want to take responsibility for me," that's how she put it. Abby thought for a moment. She really tried to help Lauren. After all, they were friends, and Abby selfishly didn't want to lose someone like Lauren. "Listen, do you believe in magic? Like Santa Claus?" Lauren raised an eyebrow. "Well, I do. Although he never brings the right presents. Mom says it's because he has Alzheimer's. My mom told me this. And Abby leaned in close to Lauren's ear, as if about to tell a very ancient and important secret. No one should hear it except Lauren. While Abby spoke, the girl's face changed. In the end, it settled into a questioning expression. Do you think it will work? My mom says it always works, and my mom doesn't lie. Give it a try, at least. I'll try. Lauren's childlike eyes sparkled with determination. Lauren regained the hope that had almost completely left her. Such conversations were necessary, even if they didn't lead to anything. They helped her believe again. After classes, Lauren approached Sarah and warned her that she wouldn't stay for the extended day program. Sarah nodded, though as an educator, she didn't encourage a first grader to be so independent. There should be some boundaries. It was simply too dangerous. But Lauren's grandmother considered it normal, and in this case, the teacher was powerless. Sarah wished Lauren's mom a speedy recovery again and asked the girl to be more careful. Lauren still thought that maybe she was too harsh on Sarah. She's a good teacher. A bit naive for a teacher, but good. Lauren took the bus to the hospital. All the local conductors knew the mature girl quite well and let her ride without a ticket. Although, at 7 years old, isn't it supposed to be necessary? She arrived at the hospital during visiting hours, so no one paid attention to her. She quietly slipped into the familiar room. There, in her usual position, unmoving and breathing quietly, lay her mom. Lauren carefully closed the door behind her. Hi, Mommy. Silence. Well, she didn't expect a response. She hadn't expected one for a long time. How are you here? Aren't they bothering you? I don't like this new nurse. She looks so mean. If I find out that she's shaking your bed when she mops the floors, oh, I'll give it to her. Lauren threatened with a little fist. Just tell me, Mom, and I'll deal with her. Lauren could sit by her mom's bedside for hours, but right now her heart was restless, and she quickly told her mom everything that was bothering her. At the end, she added, Abby said we have to say magic words, Mommy, for you to wake up again. And Abby doesn't lie, I trust her. And, leaning over to her mother's ear, she whispered something indistinct. At that moment, the machine made a sudden, loud noise. Lauren screamed in fear. She had never heard anything like it. But what happened next shocked her even more. Her mom opened her eyes. Mommy! The amazed girl whispered. It worked. Mommy, Mommy! Are you awake? Julia struggled to focus her gaze on her daughter, showing that she didn't understand where she was. All her thoughts were probably attempting to surface, but she struggled to say something. Doctors rushed into the room in the commotion, and they simply pushed Lauren out into the corridor, closing the door right in her face. The frightened girl looked around and then burst into tears. A nurse approached her, hugged Lauren, and the girl told her what had just happened. A few minutes later, in Mary's apartment, the long-awaited phone call came. Mary? Said that same sympathetic nurse. Yes? Mary replied with a heavy sigh. If this is about my pension, I'll continue to receive it at the post office. It's convenient for me. Your daughter has awakened. Mary hung up the phone. What a turn of events. Mary jumped from her seat and rushed to the hospital. On the way, she called everyone, friends, relatives. Her phone was constantly in use. Even though the elderly woman herself had trouble believing it, she needed to see her daughter with her own eyes. When the pensioner arrived, Lauren was still in the corridor, struggling to be allowed in only with her grandmother. All the grievances faded when Julia finally opened her eyes. Nothing else mattered. Mary cautiously opened the door, her heart beating faster. "Hello, Mom," Julia whispered very softly, as if she were using the last of her strength. Mary burst into tears. She never believed she'd hear her daughter's voice again. What was this miraculous phrase? In reality, there was no magic. Lauren leaned in close to her mother's ear and whispered, "Mommy, I need your help." And at that moment, something clicked. Julia, who had been lost in the mazes of her own memory, finally found a way out. It turned out to be so simple and obvious that she jumped up and ran. The reward for her endless wanderings was the first look at her daughter. Julia still had a long road of recovery ahead, but she didn't want to hear that Lauren would be living somewhere else. Like a tigress, she was ready to fight for her daughter, and the pace of her recovery confirmed this. Happiness returned to their small family, and Lauren started smiling again.